So just a brief introduction of what we've got here. We've got a roof array and a plane port currently, which is outside, that we're going to see in a bit. The total size is 331 kilowatt peak. We are currently at the moment looking at putting in a battery that would be currently a 215 kilowatt hour battery. You can see the annual generation there. The self-sufficiency figures, obviously these are things that we've touched on the previous sites, so you can kind of see the how this is working. Rather than going on these top level figures, I wanted to try and talk to you about how we kind of developed the plane port that's outside. That's the more interesting bit than the roof solar. I want to make sure the figures are correct. Obviously, a little bit of pressure being in Saxon Air at the moment, so I'll go on to this one. So I've done a more visual prop here rather than words on the screen, just showing you about the origins of the plane port that we've got. We've got the Pipistrel electric plane to the left of you there. That was kind of the inspiration, I think, for developing this kind of thing. So we've got a few parties here that have obviously been integral in the development of these kind of projects. We've got our friends at Highspan that provide a lot of the steel. We've got Timbridge in the back there that actually helped commission and actually design some of this project in affiliation with Ren Energy. You can see from there, we've got on the left, we've got the initial CAD drawings, which I did personally. That was kind of going from paper to some kind of engineering format very early on. This was done in 2021, so it's very much an R&D project, and it's located at the South Buckingham Airport. Lead acid batteries. It has a capacity of about 14 kilowatt peak on about 33 Q-cell modules. You can see there that was actually built, I think it was around June of that year. It was all kind of very experimental because it was so new. This had never been done before. We used a glulam timber to provide most of the frame. It has a galvanized steel purling on top. The combination of materials seemed to work. It aesthetically looked pretty good. It added some structural support, having some of the steel bases as well there. So the middle photo there is kind of it in construction, and then the final photo there is the finished product with the Nuncats Timbridge's electric plane underneath to show it in context. And that's a similar plane to the one to the left of you there. That was in 2021. Then we've kind of developed that a lot further for a more kind of commercial approach to try and tie in with the ambitions of Saxon Air for the electric plane. You can see there on the left, the drawings are getting a little bit more sophisticated. We've kind of developed that with the team internally at Ren Energy. Our friends at Highspan as well have provided the structural calculations, the verification, all of this. The civil designers have been concluded. It is a full galvanized steel frame this time rather than the glulam. The glulam looked fantastic, but it's not quite as durable as some of the steel. So being in a commercial application, it just made sense to have that type of material on the site there. This is fixed down into the surface there with helical piles, very similar technology to what we use for our carport. So we've always been using the information and lessons learned on carport frames across sites like Tom mentioned just now. You can see the middle photo there was us installing it. Obviously that was a full commercial install. There's a lot of health and safety things that we had to consider, a live working site, customer expectation on getting it done in time and things like that. And then at the end there, you might have seen that photo. That is the Pipistrel there sitting underneath the plane port. Some of the kind of highlights of that's got 44 modules, so it's slightly larger than the original R&D project. And it's also got a capacity of 18 kilowatt peak into a 15, it's a grid-tied version this time, so it's got a inverter on the side there. So it's a 15 kilowatt Fronius inverter, and it also has the ability to charge the plane directly via a 32 amp or 22 kilowatt charger supply. So you can see there that the charger's brought out, connected into the plane port, and it's effectively charging from the plane port whilst being connected to the rest of the solar on the site. So that shows like a snippet of the kind of development and how a project kind of, that's over like 3 or 4 years, how we've got to that kind of solution. There's very ambitious plans, certainly at Saxon Air, with trying to look at renewable technology, looking at ways to improve self-sufficiency on site. So we've been working with them on top of this. So we've done the roof array, we've done the plane port, we've talked about other schemes. We're currently looking at the next steps on this site. So it's a good time to talk about that. I apologise, it's an SLD, so it's not the most interesting of pictures, but it kind of tells a story of the site and what this could look like on other sites that are similar. People looking to kind of incorporate different types of renewable technology. I can just run you through there. So you've got at the top there, that's the existing supply. So you're always going to have the existing supply from the grid. What you're trying to do is obviously trying to make more generation on site. We've currently got the roof array, which is kind of at the bottom of the tree down here. You've got the plane port, so that has that's your 250 kVA connected straight into the site. So that's used directly in the site. Obviously, we've with the excess solar on a sunny day like today, if we're not using it, we don't want it to go back to the grid. Ideally, we want to try and keep that into a battery. So we've been looking at a energy center, is what we're looking to call it. So at the top here, we've got the chance of kind of resupplying some of the demand on site. That would be in the form of a battery. So currently we've got a battery on order here for a 215 kilowatt hour, 100 kilowatt battery. So that will supplement both the solar and the grid. But the interesting bit, and maybe the more complicated part of it, is actually making sure that everything's compliant and can work together. So we've got a new distribution board there, panel board, that can supply both, well, that can incorporate this rooftop solar, the plane port, the existing load on here, the battery, up to 3 batteries. So at the moment we're going to do 1, but as demand increases, electric planes, if they become more frequent, we can then look at applying further batteries. So we're doing a little bit of future proofing, which is kind of is an important thing to do. It's a difficult thing to do because it's obviously a little bit more money sometimes, but you've got to look into going further in that. So that would be up to 3. We've got capacity there with this new board and energy center to put in an extra 3 batteries the same size. So that's effectively another 300 kilowatt supply. And then with Tim and some of his team there, we've got some EV chargers. I think there's some existing EV chargers, but there's up to 220 kilowatt of EV chargers potentially to go on site as well. And like Damien mentioned about, electric fleets, and that's only going to increase. So increasing the ability to be able to, power your site from various technologies is crucial, and it's something that I think a lot of sites are looking at. I think this is that's a tidy solution. Some of them are a lot more complicated than that, but it gives you a good idea that kind of you can go from sites like BBC, which have quite a small connection. Here's a relatively large connection, but they're kind of employing the same bit. The interesting thing and the more difficult technical challenges of this is having different technology types, having the ability for them to all talk together effectively. If you've got everybody charging their EV cars at once, if you've got all the electric planes charging at once, if you've got the heaters on and it's January, there's no sun, you've got to be able to control everything to go on and off everywhere. So that is normally the more complicated part. So there's suppliers and partners that we've worked with on other sites that we employ to make sure things are reading correctly, make sure that we can control things, a bit like what Claude is saying, making sure that energy's moved around the site correctly.